Greetings all, FerrariMan601 here. Welcome back to iRacing, and, well, for the first time ever, I suppose, welcome to the iRacing Car Viewer. Yeah, iRacing finally getting into the 2010s with a car viewer that renders the vehicle models in 3D so that we could take a closer look at them. Well, what is this subject of our current view? Well, this is the iRacing-Dallara iR01. This car is already mighty controversial, and, well, I understand entirely where the controversy is coming from, because iRacing, they are, well, probably the best all-around sim racing simulator out there today, and they have been since 2008 when they launched. One of the key tenets of sim racing, though, is realism. And realism is basically this ethereal, amorphous term that nobody can seem to define, despite everybody always complaining about it when they don't think that it fits their own definition of realism. But I think it suffices to say that what you see before you is not real, because it is absolutely not real. The Dallara iR01, developed by Dallara in conjunction with iRacing for the 2021 Season 1 update, which hit on the Wednesday past, as of the time of recording this. That would be December 9th, 2020. It was the centerpiece of absolutely a massive update, which for me came to about 12.5 gigabytes in terms of the initial download for everything. But among other things, you get Long Beach and you get the Dallara iR01. What is the iR01? Well, in a bit of a departure from iRacing's previous updates, they've included, with the 2021 Season 1 update, a user manual for several vehicles, including the iR01. What is this thing? Why does it exist? And why has it caused so much controversy? Well, developed in conjunction with Dallara, the iR01 comes to iRacing, and it boasts the following specifications. We have got ourselves dry weight of 600 kilograms. Weight ready to go, full of fuel with the driver on board, is 716 kilograms. The wheelbase is 3,050 millimeters. The width is 2,180 millimeters. And the length is 4,550 millimeters. In the back, we have got a mid-mounted stressed member V10 engine displacing 3 liters. It revs to 20,000 RPM. It puts out 333 newton meters of torque and 671 kilowatts, or in old money, 900 horsepower. Why? Why? Well, why not? That's my contention with all of this. Everybody has been saying things about this car. Some people have been very happy about it. Some people have been very not happy about it. Where do I stand on this? I'm happy about it. Why am I happy about it? Well, this car exists because of what's going on in the world. iRacing, yes, absolutely, they pride themselves, and they have done this exclusively throughout their entire history, on building real-world cars in the fictional world. Now the world has gone absolutely crazy, so we kind of want to be in a fictional world right now, so here we have a fictional car for the fictional world. Now, we say that this is a fictional car because it is a fictional car. However, how fictional is it? Just take a look at the overall proportions of this thing. That front end there, that nose cone and that front wing, that's very evocative of, say, a Formula One wing from 2006 to 2008 or so. You got that spoon profile with its lowest point in the center section. We have raised end fences a little bit toward the outboard sides of the wing as well. The flaps come up. And then we've got those inverted U-channels down at the bottom. The front end also features what? You got a double wishbone pushrod front suspension right there. You got big wheels and tires. You get brake ducts feeding those front wheels there to cool the carbon-carbon brakes. You got a cockpit in the middle. You've got a snorkel just to rears of the cockpit for your engine intake. You've got topside periscope-style exhausts. You've got a rear end with a rear wing. Looks like you've got double wishbone pull rod suspension there on the rear. And you've got an absolutely massive diffuser underneath exiting out through the back, as you can see. Rear crash structure there. You got a fuel filler. You got a cockpit surround with the padding. You've got not a halo, not an aero screen, but you do have a windscreen on this thing, which we could assume is made of some sort of indestructible unobtainium. You got side impact crash structures, radiators feeding through side pods where you'd expect absolutely massive inlets. So, how fictional is it? The car doesn't exist, we know this, but this does not in any way look like something that is impossible. Absolutely, this car could be built right now. All the technology is there. We've got a 7-speed sequential semi-auto gearbox. We've got a 3-liter V10 engine. All this is technology that has existed for quite some time. Aerodynamically, we don't have all that much topside going on, but underneath, you can see we've got 2 big tunnels that feed the under tray of this car. They intake from the front side here around the center point of the monocoque, I suppose, and then they obviously feed through the side and out the back. Lots of bottom side ground effect downforce generation on this car. Not so much top side. You get a big front wing and a big rear wing, but take a look at that rear wing. Does it remind you of anything? It reminds me an awful lot of the 2022 Formula 1 proposal. And the front wing, as I said, reminds me an awful lot of what Formula 1 had been doing through the mid-2000s. So is this car fictional? Yes. Is this car fantasy? Absolutely not. Of course, you've also got really big wheels on this thing. I think they're 19 inches. I have to take a closer look at that. But yeah, obviously big slick tires on this thing. Is that not what Formula 1 is about to do? Yep, pretty much that's exactly what Formula 1 is about to do. And of course, the suspension plan is straight out of the Formula 1 playbook. Double wishbone push rod on the front and pull rod on the rear. Gearbox obviously is a mounting point for the rear suspension, and then obviously the engine is a stressed member. Got the swan neck profile there of the 2 pillars that are supporting the rear wing in part. The rest of the rear wing supported by the floor of the car directly, as you can see through that diffuser outlet. So, what do you have here? You've got a design study, ladies and gentlemen. You have a design study in the truest sense of the word. iRacing has been always advancing in terms of the physics simulation, and I think they're at a point right now where it's basically impossible to distinguish on the face of it a simulator like iRacing versus Assetto Corsa Competizione or even Assetto Corsa proper, especially with the later advancements that have been ongoing with the custom shaders patch and everything along those lines that have continued to make Assetto Corsa even more relevant, even though that game is 7 years old now. Can you believe that? Yeah. So, for a company like Dallara to partner with a company like iRacing, we know Dallara is a big-time manufacturer of race cars, and they are basically the premier manufacturer of, at very least, open-wheel race cars today. They are the sole chassis supplier for IndyCar, for Formula 2, Formula 3. They have built the Formula 1 cars for Haas since 2016. I believe that they're going to continue doing that for the foreseeable future. And who knows, perhaps, and this is just a crazy air castle on my part, but perhaps Dallara are thinking about, do we continue being the chassis supplier for IndyCar when they decide to go through their big rules revamp at some point? Do they continue to be the chassis supplier for Haas for the foreseeable future? Probably. Does this not look like a 2022 Formula 1 car? Does this not look like something that IndyCar would probably be interested in? Yep, it does to me. This is a design study, and iRacing, and by extension all of us, are being used as a test bed for this design study. All that money that a company like Dallara would be spending with research and development, with simulation, with all kinds of stuff, and eventually when they actually build a running prototype to do real-world testing, all that time is now going to be outsourced to you as the end user. And of course, iRacing has fundamental problems with the physics engine that still have been plaguing it basically since it was conceived in 2008. But it continues to get better, and I think we all continue to get better as we get more experience in this virtual driving world. And of course, Dallara are going to be looking at this, and iRacing are going to be looking at this, and when iRacing came to Dallara in May of this year to say, hey, do you mind awfully if we build a fictional car based on what we think people would like to see? Especially considering that we can't get out in the real world right now to take the super precise laser scans of new tracks and the super precise laser scans and 3D modeling of real world cars that we do want to bring to the simulator. Pretty sure Dallara turned around and said, you know what, that's a crazy enough idea, it might just work, let's try it. And that's exactly what they did here with the IR-01. They could have picked a slightly better name, I will say. The IR-01 is also another Dallara car that does very much exist in the real world. It was used in the Indy Racing League for a time. But, yeah, the names aside, this is a cool project. It's a really, really cool project. We've got a lot of performance available. Like we said, it's got 900 horsepower on tap, and it's got a 20,000 RPM redline. You've got a very wide range of performance through the rev range, in terms of torque, in terms of power, and of course you have a lot of mechanical grip with the big slick tires, as well as a lot of high-speed aero grip with that floor in particular. Again, lots of ground effect, lots of Venturi effect going on there with the tunnels. Yeah, it's different. It's definitely different. It's definitely a departure from what iRacing have given us in the past. But is it bad? No, it's not bad. Not bad at all. Let's talk a little bit more about why this is not bad on track.
Welcome to Catalunya. Now, to get an assessment of generally what this car is and what it does, and to put it into context with some performance that we do actually know, we're going to be doing this at Catalunya because this is the test track for Formula One, and this car, in my estimation, most strongly resembles a Formula One car in terms of its overall plan as well as its overall performance envelope, so why not do it here? We've got the historic configuration of the circuit for us today, so we do not have the Sector 3 chicane, nor do we have the tightened up La Caixa corner at the end of Sector 2. So we have got the long banked left-hander moving toward the end of the lap, and then we do not have the chicane in Sector 3, so we've got that straight shot through those two kind of flat, kind of not right-hand corners to end the lap, turns 13 and 14. So we'll be able to take a look at our lap times here and get an assessment of where we stand in relation to the last time Formula One went here with a V10 car, and that would have been in 2005. The lap record from the qualifying session from the 2005 Spanish Grand Prix, for those of you who are curious, set in Q1 by Jarno Trulli in the Toyota TF105, that it was a 1:14.795. So those cars were a bit lighter than this one in terms of how they were actually running. They had a formula weight of 605 kilograms for qualifying. Our dry weight is 600 kilograms, so obviously we're going to be a bit heavier than that as we're going along. But first things first, let's take a look at what is available here in terms of the setup. On the tire screen, we have got 3 tire compounds to choose from. We've got softs, mediums, and hards. We'll do our first run here basically on all default setups on the hard tires. You can see our starting pressure here for all 4 tires is 20 psi, and there's some instrumentation in the cockpit which is relevant to this. Chassis, on the front end, we have got the anti-roll bar settings there. We have got our push rod lengths. We've got our ballast toward the nose. We've got our spring perch offsets and spring rates, so that's going to be setting the ride height as well as the heave rates on the front end there. Obviously, bound and rebound stiffness adjustable on the front end as well. We have got our crib sheet here basically for our corner weight. So obviously we've got a rear weight bias in a car. We've got 465 pounds at the rear corners, and we've got 367 at the front corners. Camber and toe adjustments also available here for all 4 corners. The rear end, this is our basically our push rod as well as our third spring. We've got our anti-roll bar stiffness. We have got our push rod lengths. We have got our spring perch for ride height adjustments, and we've got our spring rate there as well as bound and rebound in our bumps. Vehicle systems, here we get our aero screen here. The only thing we can set up there is the front wing angle. So it's at 5 degrees right now. The range of adjustment there goes down to minus 12 or all the way up to plus 12. So we'll go that back down to 5. Next adjustment here in terms of our drivetrain. The only thing we can adjust on the gearbox is the final drive. We've got a 7.77 here as a final drive for a shorter ratio, or a longer one at 7.35. You cannot adjust the individual gearing there for all of your forward gears 1 through 7. Only the rear end ratio there, the final drive. Similarly, the differential, you can adjust that in terms of power, coast, and preload via the drive ramp and coast ramp angles, clutch plates as well in terms of how much differential locking you have, and the preload there. And of course, default values are shown. Engine in-car dials. This is your throttle map. So you have got 3 throttle maps to choose from. You've got one, which is basically trying to emulate an old-school butterfly throttle valve. You've got step 2, which they explain as being, what do they explain it as? It's at the bottom of the screen there. 3 is linear. So in other words, that's a direct correlation to pedal travel there. And then step 2, I'm assuming, is going to be basically a compromise between the two because I don't see anything specifically to setting 2 there. Interesting. We'll start that out in step 1 and see where we go. Fuel level, this is a full tank, 26.4 gallons. Brakes, we've got the master cylinders on the front and the rear. So in other words, this is your diameter of the master cylinder in terms of the piston in there to move the hydraulic fluid around. And you can sort of determine how much pressure goes to the front or the rear and when that happens. Additionally, you do have your brake bias. It defaults to 53% to the front. Steering pinions, so this is basically setting your steering rate via the rack and pinion steering system on the car. There is also no power steering on the car, so that's interesting. And then finally, you've got your dash page. There are 2 pages available on the steering wheel, qualifying and race, and of course you can change them in real time as well. And obviously in your notes here, they don't give you all that much, but they give you some. And of course they have the user manual in addition to all of that. So, interesting stuff available here on this car in terms of setup, but it's not terribly comprehensive. It's all basically what you get out of the box is what you get out of the box, and you can tweak it a little bit, and of course there's a lot that you can do with suspension setup in general, but they give you a little bit of liberty in terms of finding what you personally like, but by and large, it is what it is. It's not quite a spec package in terms of being totally fixed and utterly equal for everybody, but your latitude to play is somewhat limited. And I think obviously that is designed to make the car a bit more competitive in more open series. Obviously there's going to be a main championship series for this car at some point as well, but really they're just trying to keep the playing field as level as they reasonably can, but still affording us a little bit of latitude to fine-tune things for our personal taste. Right, so in the cockpit of the IR-01, what do we see first and foremost in front of us? Well, we have got a steering wheel, and we have got this windscreen that we talked about from the 3D view. Obviously, an open wheeler nowadays, nobody is going to be running it without some sort of substantial cockpit head protection device, whether that's Halo, as we see in Formula One and basically every other series in Europe, or it's Aeroscreen like we see in IndyCar here in North America. There's got to be something. We can assume that the visor, windscreen, whatever you want to call it, around the cockpit of this thing is going to be made of some sort of super strong, utterly unbreakable, transparent material that doesn't exist right now. So obviously that's going to be one hindrance in terms of this car actually being built someday. But be that as it may, we have great visibility all around on this thing. You can obviously see the top of the visor there, but it's not really that obtrusive, and once you're on track, your eyes delete it anyway. The other things that you'll see in the cockpit here, you can see that we have got a view across the rear of the car. But on the exterior, you will not see any mirrors. These are projections that I could assume would be fed from cameras basically around the roll hoop over the snorkel, and then obviously they are facing back toward the rear of the car, and then the views from those 2 cameras are being transmitted stereoscopically onto the left and right sides of that visor around the cockpit. So you can see that it is semi-transparent, particularly on the right-hand one. You can see that we can see the tire sidewall of our right front tire through that image. So it's semi-transparent. It's a cool effect. I haven't seen anything like that before on iRacing, and it works pretty nicely, I've got to say. But is it totally realistic? Jury is out. Regardless, what else do we have? We have got a fancy steering wheel on this thing, and there we go. That's full lock to the right. And you can see generally the disposition of the cockpit. You can see we have got our switches there. We've got our brake bias adjust, which as I play with the brake bias is actually animated, so you'll be able to see that perhaps as I'm making adjustments. And obviously we've got the steering wheel. It's the butterfly design. There is no continuous rim. Don't really see that in steering wheels anywhere anymore nowadays, a continuous rim. But we have got, looks like we've got a clutch paddle there on the bottom left of the steering wheel. And then, of course, we have got our gear shift paddles up on the right, down on the left, as you would expect. We've also got some buttons here, but looks like we've only got 8 of them on the steering wheel, not the 17 million that you see on a Formula One steering wheel today. Much more in keeping with an IndyCar Formula 2 type steering wheel. When we switch the car on, more things happen. First of all, you get the splash screen that says Dallara there, and then after about 5 seconds, that goes through a configuration, and then it brings up this. This is the race display. You can see that it's colored red right now, and we've got 2 flashing red lights because the engine's not running and it's giving us a low oil pressure warning. So there's that. Going through our instrumentation here on the race page, we see in the upper left RPM, that is our crankshaft RPM off the engine. The engine is stopped right now, so it's displaying 0, but that will display all the way well into 5 figures up to 20,000. Speed will be reading out in miles per hour here to the immediate right of our tachometer, obviously 0. Brake bias, this shows our selected brake bias, so it's 53% to the front, and as I ramp the bias forward, you can see that cycles up, and then again, as I go rearward, it cycles down. Pedal map is next, and you'll be able to see the pedal map as I change that. Map 3, Map 2, and Map 1. Obviously, you'll have to get your button assignments right on your steering wheel to get that working. Below that, in the left-hand column, you can see we have FARB and RARB. Yes, front anti-roll bar and rear anti-roll bar. If I adjust the front anti-roll bar, you see it goes to 4, 3, 2, and 1. The higher the number is the stiffer setting. And then similarly on the rear, I can adjust it up to 4 and then 3, 2, 1. So all of that is there. Below that, you've got our lap counter. So lap 1. To the right of that, we have got our battery voltage, so 13.4 volts. Water temperature, that is for the engine, obviously, at 170F. Oil temperature is the same as the water temperature right now because they're sharing a system. As the car is on life support in the pit lane, 170F. The right-hand column from the top, we will have our lap time up there in the upper right. We'll have a delta below that. Fuel remaining in gallons, so we've got a full tank right now. And that about covers the race page. The qualifying page is what you see here, and we have a lot of the same information as the race page, but the bottom row has changed. Now we see tire temperature in degrees Fahrenheit, and we see tire pressure there at 19.93 psi. You'll see that they're flashing, and those tire pressure values will remain flashing until the tire pressures reach 21 psi. That's the sweet spot for these tires, quite evidently. We can go back to our race page. Next thing, pit lane speed limiter is now active. When the engine is running, you'll see the whole display turn green as the engine fires, and then it will turn blue when the pit lane speed limiter is activated. Here, with the engine off, the pit lane limiter is activated. You can see, in addition now to the red lights that we have flashing for our oil pressure warning, we have these 4 blue lights that are flashing over top of those, and that is going to show us that the pit lane speed limiter is active. So when we hit the gas and we do not accelerate past 50 miles an hour, that's why press the button and the limiter is off, quite obviously. We have no hybrid system on this car, nor do we have DRS. So basically, those are the tools and the toys that you have to play with here. You have a brake bias adjustment, you have a front and rear anti-roll bar, and you've got a throttle map. And then that's about it. The rest is all taken care of with your steering, your throttle, your brake, and when you pull it away anyway, your clutch. And that's about all she wrote. It's actually a rather simple car to operate, but it is not very much a simple car to drive. Right, so we have got it absolutely brimming with fuel. We have got a set of the hard tires on, so these are the hardest compound tires, but otherwise default setup as you get the car loaded up here. Switching the ignition back on. Let it configure, and there we go. We'll get our engine fired up. So there it is, all 10 cylinders burst into life, and you can see the display has now changed in color from red to green. And similarly, on the qualifying page, you can see we have tire temperatures for all 4, as well as tire pressures for all 4. The low oil pressure warning had blocked that out previously. Back to our race page here, you can see our water temp and oil temp have now diverged, as the engine is now pumping water actively. And then, that's about all she wrote. We will get our pit lane speed limiter up. You can see the screen turns blue. Drop the car into first gear, raise the revs, and get it rolling. Limiter off. Watch our water temp and make sure that our water and oil temp eventually start to come up. They will basically converge again, and then the water temp will start to rise as it starts to cool the oil down. There we go. There's our qualifying page. Start to see our tire temperatures and our pressures as they're changing dynamically. Now I'm shifting right now at about 17,000, which is where you're used to hearing a V10 rev. It goes all the way to 20. I just don't want to scorch the tires too soon. Trying to make sure the car is reasonably happy before we start to give it some more power. This is full throttle now. Revs keep going. 19, 19.5, 19.9 is where we're shifting. Braking way early as the brakes need to come up still. And of course the tires are still well out of their optimal envelope. Tires are very slowly coming to life here. These hard tires take about 4 or 5 laps really to switch on. At the moment, they aren't giving me much. Really gotta very deliberately bring the tires into the window. There is grip, of course, but not as much as you would expect in a car that presents like this one does. At least not on the cold, hard tires. 21.875 is our first timed lap. That's going to come down. The initial impressions here, though, as the tires are still very much in their warm-up window, there is understeer at medium to high speed, and there's quite a lot of it, too. My first couple of install laps in this car a couple of days ago, I was very much taken by surprise at just how long it takes these hard tires to come in. I mean, I figured that they would take a little while, but I didn't expect it to take several laps. It's almost NASCAR-style stuff there. But you can see the tire pressures are starting to approach that 21 PSI threshold. Not across the board, though. Still got to get some more heat in them, particularly the fronts. Forever just playing with the throttle through the final corner as the front end just wants to wash completely free. But you can see that the visibility out of this cockpit is very good. That visor in front of us doesn't really impact the sight lines at all. But I imagine it would be sheltering the cockpit quite effectively from the wind blast and any small debris. See that understeer, though, all the way through turn 4. Turn 8, lots of understeer again, yep. Rear tires are just approaching 21, and you'll see that they'll stop flashing in a moment when they get there. right, now I'm starting to feel like the tires are getting there. Starting to give me something I can work with. Very 2004, 2005-esque in terms of Formula One performance through turn 3. Just that long right-hander, and you can wait for what seems like an eternity to get onto the throttle sometimes. An unloaded left front there locking. He has sent the surface temperature through the roof. But now that the rears are starting to play with me, getting more grip, having to wait less and less to get back on the throttle through those medium speed corners. Car turns in a little bit more assuredly. Get back on the throttle. You can see the rear end does want to step out, but you've got enough slip in the differential that it doesn't just immediately lock, and then it would, of course, pitch you into a spin in a hurry. This car doesn't do that. You can get hard into the throttle pretty early on in a long corner. And it will not spin itself out too quickly. I mean, you will, of course, get power oversteer, but you do have ample time to correct for it. Even in third gear here, just slam the throttle down, and it does grip. Off of the pedal, let the wheel spin up again. There we go. As seems to be a trait with the other iRacing open wheelers, unsprung weight does start to rear its ugly head in terms of weight transfer. You can see that the unloaded tire will lock very easily under not even all that much braking. So you do have to just sort of lean on the rest of the tires that are still on the ground fully and get off of that brake pedal until it starts to rotate again, because, of course, a locked wheel is not going to be generating really anything in terms of grip for you. Understeer through the final corner, still up by about 0.9, 118.358. So quite a bit away from the 2005 Q1 time. Remember, we are full of fuel, and we are on the hardest of the 3 available tire compounds. Playing with the steering a little bit more here through turn 3. Little bit of a gentle drift there through turn 4. A little bit wide, going to pick up a little bit of dirt, I think. We might have just hit the DRS sign, which is fine by me. DRS is fake racing. Now I just alienated everybody who was born after 2007 or so. Little bit of a tank slapper that wanted to get started there. The downforce in terms of what's going on with the tunnels just grabs that back, though. Get off of the pedal, let it stamp itself out. There you go. Yeah. That's what I do mean, and that's not something that's specific to this car necessarily. It's just a trait of iRacing open wheelers. You can lock the brakes on the initial application, and if that happens, you just got to get off of the pedal again, and by the time they start to spin, you've well overshot your turn-in point. That's just something you got to be mindful of. It's very difficult to modulate that, though, in cars like this because of the downforce. As the speed drops, the downforce drops, and, you know, the grip that's available drops. Just generally speaking, now that the tires are pretty much happy, the car is definitely biased to understeer at medium and high speeds, which I suppose you would expect. Braking can be a little bit touchy, particularly if you're braking on the curbs like I'm doing there, or if the car's not entirely straightened out before you jump on the brakes. But the agility on turn-in is really good. Medium to high speed grip is really good despite the understeer. You just have to be very measured with what you do with the steering, and evidently with the throttle to an extent as well. See, we absolutely lit up the tires there in terms of the temperature. Be careful for the next couple of corners because you'll have a lot of oversteer propensity. I want to get that right front up into the window. Won't make the same mistake twice. A little bit of wheel spin there, coming back into the power through 6 and 7. For 8, little bit of a slide at the rear. Turns into a neutral slide, which is better, I suppose. Other thing that you'll notice about just interfacing with this car, the gearbox, it is not seamless, not in the least. Not like the modern Formula One gearboxes by any means. There's a discernible break in drive between gears, and downshifts actually take a little while. In a lot of cases, it's almost better to wait to start the downshifts for just a fraction after you get really hard on the brakes. Seems to keep the rear end a bit more stable, and also just helps the box get down. Obviously no clutch is required once you're underway. But that deceleration in particular does help to get the gearbox slotted into the next cog down. But you can see that once you do get the tires into the window, you can get on the throttle real early for the most part. And it will grip. That front end visibility does allow you to place the car more or less exactly where you want it, provided that it responds as you anticipate. The other thing that I will definitely point out, though, no power steering on this car. Not at all. Which means that the steering weight is rather substantial. It's not so bad through the lower speed stuff, but the higher speed stuff, it gets real heavy. Like even turning in initially through here, it gets a little bit difficult. It gets a little bit lighter as the downforce comes off. But through this, it's a weighty thing. Back to our race page. See how the car's vital signs are doing. Pretty good. Working lap 11 here. Our water and oil temp more or less have converged. Very nice. The car bit very nicely that time. See, our fuel load is also about half of what it was when we started. That's what I mean, though, because now these tires are really into their window, and the car is responding pretty well. There is still that mid-corner understeer, particularly medium speed. But not bad. Not bad at all. At 210 miles an hour, jumping on the brakes. That's quick. That's properly quick. Yeah, I forgot. This thing is 900 horsepower. Jesus. Most powerful car in iRacing. Well, how much do those stadium trucks have? They might have around 800 or so. I don't know. All I know is they can bounce themselves in the air without hitting anything. But this thing, yep, absolutely most powerful open-wheeler in iRacing. I dare say it's the fastest open-wheeler in iRacing. Actually, have not done any one-on-one head-to-head comparisons with this and the FW31 Williams or the MP430 McLaren, particularly after its update. But it's going to be up there, if not all out faster. That's good. Fastest lap of the session. So, there was another instance where we had locking. And I hit the speed bump and it pushed us off. But that's another instance where you have locking in the initial phase of the braking zone and then it's almost completely non-recoverable. Playing with the anti-roll bars a bit. Seems to have generated a bit more understeer. And dive in the pits here. There's a limiter. So you get how the display changes colors in that condition. And you see our water temp really starts to jump into the stratosphere with the reduced airflow. But there we are. Got the car switched on ignition-wise again. But that's what we have got here on basically default setup on the hard tires. Not bad by any means, but obviously there is some more performance potential available once you get the mediums or the softs on. Our next run is going to be on the softs. We'll be taking a look at what the delta is there, but 118.2 and change so far, which is respectable, but still rather a ways off of that ultimate pace that we had from 2005, 1:14.795, set by Jarno Trulli in the 2005 Spanish Grand Prix qualifying session. So, onward and upward, as they say. Right, so not bad at all on hard tires, but it's, hard tires, so there's a little bit more performance potential available, which means, time to go on to the softs. Otherwise, we're not going to touch anything. Still going to run the same 20 PSI cold all around, and not going to change anything aero-wise, drivetrain-wise. It's all fine. You saw that there was quite a significant warm-up period, though, that was required before the grip really started to come to us. So that is going to be diminished somewhat on the softs, but it's not going to be entirely eliminated, as we shall see. However, let's get it all fired up once again. There we go, and start up. Just love the sound of a V10 firing up. See it idles at 3388 there. Yeah, that's fantastic. All right. Off we go. And we'll watch the tire temperatures here, and they should come up a whole lot more quickly on the softs than they did on the hards. Still got to think about brake temperatures, though. And we are still running full of fuel. So we'll get a decent benchmark here to see what the tires do without touching anything else. So 118.2 and change from before, remember? All right, what have we got on our first timed lap? Let's see. I gotta remember that the brakes are not quite there yet. Lots of understeer here on these full tanks. And of course, still working the tires up through the second phase of their warm-up. They are getting there. Slowly but surely, they will get better and better. Car is already wanting to rotate a bit better on turn in than it was before. We would expect this, of course. So washing out a bit through the final corner. 118.843 already, okay. Right, the left rear is up to temperature and pressure. Obviously, with the preponderance of right turns versus left turns on this track, you'll expect the left side wheels to come up first. A little bit of initial locking there on the, I believe it was the right front, kind of pulled to the right a little bit. Would make sense considering where the dynamic loads are and where the temperatures are. Here we go. Both left sides are up. 118.458 already. Still very heavy on fuel, 23.5 gallons. Well, obviously, you can see that we have got quite an impressive margin from the tires alone. Right now, this will put us into the 17s. We can hold it together. On course for the mid-17s at the moment. Lots of understeer, picked up a little bit of gravel. Right, 1 second under Delta. There we go. 17.788. All right, I'll take that. There's the tires doing their thing. So, yeah, demonstrably, the softs are faster than the hards. Groundbreaking research going on here. There's all kinds of out of shape into turn one. We lost half a second already. All right, not bad. Carrying that deficit that we gave ourselves literally at turn one. Second gear through turn 12 actually might be better. Lots of understeer. Get it back. A little bit of a neutral slide there through turn 4. Had a 5, decent exit. Lost a little bit of time actually. Gained it all back. By second gear. All right. Gain a little bit. Not bad at all. 17.392. All right. I'll take it. I will definitely take it. For heavy on fuel, that ain't bad. We're about a second off of the Q2 times, though, from Spain 05. That was when they set, remember, in the early part of 2005 anyway, qualifying was an aggregate total of 2 laps. There was one light lap, and then there was one heavy lap, and the combined time was the grid. They were setting times in the mid-116s on full tanks in 2005, so we're a bit off of that still. And I should clarify that, not necessarily full tanks, but race fuel. So what they would run at the first stint of the Grand Prix is what they qualified on in Q2. A little bit of inside wheel spin up there. It does show the differential working though. Slightly off track in the last corner. 117.1. Okay, that's fine. I'm fairly pleased with that. Again, I've only had 2 days of running in this car so far, so I'm still very much learning it myself. But with every lap, I get more familiar with it, more confidence in what it can and cannot do. So in general, not bad at all. Yep, use all the road, why not? Up a little bit, but I don't think we can count that lap. Yep, go off track approaching turn 1, take the speed bump, nail the throttle, get all of the wheel spin, get all of the power slide, give away a ton of time. Actually, not all that much considered. I'm just overdriving the car now. Just seeing what it absolutely will do. You can see there, because of the way the differential is, it doesn't just immediately lock up, so you actually do have a bit of, I don't know what I would call it, hunting maybe, in terms of what the rear end does when you really get hard into the power at lower speeds. I mean, it grips, but it doesn't totally lock down until you're well into third gear, even fourth. So it gives you a lot of room to make adjustments with your throttle angle or steering, just so you can make sure the rear is actually planted where you want it to be. That is actually not bad. Not bad at all. Now you can see the tire temperatures going sky high because of the brake temperatures, so they're just radiating up into the tires now. That's a cool effect. It's something I noticed on the C8R Corvette as well. So that's interesting to see that all of that is modeled. Very nice. Cool. Very, very cool indeed. Not bad, but of course, what we got to do is sticky tires and low fuel. Now we'll see how this thing really stacks up. All right, no more messing around here. Low on fuel, sticky tires. Let's see what it does. Soft compound tires fitted. Fuel level, yep, there it is. 5.9 gallons from the pit lane. So our scheme is going to be 2 flyers and obviously an outlap and an inlap. Might have to do that a couple of times to see what we can get to, but I have the feeling it's going to be quite satisfactory. Ignition on. Here are the fuel pumps running there. And contact. Right, she's up, and we're going to have to do a somewhat aggressive outlap here to try and get some tire temperature and get those pressures up near 21. A little bit of a Fernando Alonso-style outlap is forthcoming. We got to build brake temperature, we got to build tire temperature, and we got to do it without throwing ourselves into the I don't know, bottomless abyss or something. Man, that steering does get heavy when you start to roll on the steering angle. Right, tires are not really there yet, but we'll see what she's got. 5 gallons. Brakes aren't really there yet either, so still got to be a little bit cautious for these first couple of corners. That understeer still rearing its ugly head. Yeah, getting the tail out, why don't you? There's that understeer in mid-corner. Roger, 5 laps. What do we got out of the final corner? What is our time? 17.857, okay. Left rear is up. Gonna kill us a bit. Half a second up or so. Big bobble there through turn 8. Still gaining. Haha, it's dancing all the way. .65, .55, .7, where are we? 117.094. We try for one more? Maybe we should. Big frame drop there. That was not a very opportune moment for it. Low fuel warning. We pushed the tires a little bit too hard. Aha! Just about. Where are we? 1:16.633. All right. You can say we had a couple off-track excursions there, but I will definitely accept it. Now we gotta get back to the pits because we're about to run out of gas. Yeah, I know. So a lot of time to be gained in sectors 2 and 3. But into the pits with us. Less than a gallon left. All right. Actually, the engine is starting to cough a little. Idle still seems all right. But whatever, that's where it is. Remember, we are comparing this to 2005 Spanish Grand Prix Q1 time, set by Jarno Trulli in the TF105, 1:14.795. So right now we're comparable to Kimi Räikkönen's Q2 time of a 1:16.602. So that's not all that bad, all things considered. I mean, 1:16.633 is our personal best right now. So we are just a hair slower than Kimi Räikkönen's Q2 time from 2005. And remember, that would have been set on race fuel. So remember, this car has a dry weight of 600 kilograms. So we are actually a little bit lighter than a 2005 Formula One car in qualifying spec, because their minimum weight in qualifying was 605. For the race, it went to 600. So there's that. So we are, in theory, a little lighter. However, believe it or not, I think we've got less downforce. So could that be the distinguishing factor of about 2 seconds between a 1:14.7 and a 1:16.3? Yeah, don't know. We'll see. Once more around. We are going to take out a little bit more fuel. We had about a lap of extra fuel on board. So, yeah. Let's do that. Give ourselves every possible advantage. And we'll just try and see what we could do. Last attempt. Here we go. The warm-up lap seemed to work all right. I mean, still could be better. How's that for some wheel spin? Really gotta try and work the tires, also work the brakes. See what we got. We got some understeer right now. All right. A bit of right front locking. Car turned in pretty nicely there. Come on. All right, not going to count that as an off track because, well, it's not. What can we do? Time is 17:053. Low fuel warning. All right. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, go! Go, 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 yes! Throwing caution to the wind. Get on the throttle as soon as you're reasonably certain it'll stick. Yes, look at that. Basically 2 seconds. 1:16.804. Whew. All right. And some understeer because we overheated the right front with that lockup. We're about to run out of gas anyway. Well, that's something. So will it work? Yeah, it'll work. Is it 2005 Q1 fast? No, it's not. Of course, there are also other extenuating circumstances that we can't totally replicate here. Track surface, specific weather conditions. Obviously, they were fundamentally different cars in a lot of respects. Completely different tires. Lots of topside aero versus underbody aero. But last time that V10 open wheelers took to Catalunya in anger, that's what they did. So the 114 and change by Jarno Trulli, not attainable. But, you know, that's not bad at all. I am reasonably pleased with what that has yielded. We are faster than Kimi Räikkönen's Q2 time by about 0.3. So that's all quite reasonable for me. Definitely will be satisfied with that effort. Could probably gain a bit more, maybe even as much as half a second, because again, no lap is ever perfect. No matter how many thousands you do, no lap is ever perfect, and again, that's an example there. But we're faster than Q2 from 2005. We're about 1.5 off of Q1 from 2005. But, it's not too bad. Just to be a little bit of a devil's advocate, if we want to be a little bit more objective in terms of, 2005 had weird rules in terms of tires and fueling. What did we get from qualifying in 2004? Well, Q1 was set by Juan Pablo Montoya in the Williams. That was 1:15.574. And Q2, pole position was Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, 1:15.022. Again, same circuit configurations. So, yeah, there's a gap, and it's a bit of an appreciable one, but a 1:16.804, I'll take it. I'll definitely take it. Not bad. Not bad at all. Could be better, could be worse by a long way, so okay, I will definitely take it. Yeah. So at the end of the day, where does this leave us? We said that we were going to talk about that this car was not bad. And I trust that the last hour and a quarter's traffic of our stage will have at least attempted to allay those fears in your hearts because, no, this car is not bad. By any means is it bad. No, not bad at all. It's fun. It's fast. It's loud. It's very visceral, very raw. It doesn't have power steering. So I think that really goes a long way to making you feel like you're actually doing something with this because this car, the IR18, even the DW12 and iR-05, they don't have power steering either. The Formula Renault 3.5, the T12, also by Dallara, of course. No power steering in those. They feel really raw and connected, and again, it depends on what your force feedback does, but my force feedback is ultra heavy and ultra high definition with this thing, so I like it an awful lot. Again, it gives you that sense of, yes, you are connected to the car and you can feel what it does and what it wants to do and what it doesn't want to do. And then if you hit the wall, you can break your finger. So keep that in mind too. But really, this is cool. This is really cool. It's a unique project. It's the first totally fictional car in iRacing. It's not the first totally fictional car that we have gotten recently in sim racing either. Of course, those of you who know all about Race Sim Studio and what they do for Assetto Corsa, a lot of their cars are technically fictional, but one series of their cars is entirely fictional, and of course that's the Formula Hybrid series. And what they do is they take macrocosmically the Formula One technical regulations, and they build their own interpretation thereof. Technically, something that would be legal to race in Formula One if the car could actually be built, but something that is absolutely for make-believe. Again, a very, very well-informed and educated construction of something that is based on something that's real, but still fantasy. Something that was fantasy totally from them, though, was the Formula Hybrid X 2021, now called the Formula Hybrid X 2022. And yes, again, that's based on the 2022 Formula One proposal, but it also bears quite a resemblance to what iRacing ultimately decided to do here. And I think that's just indicative of the times that we're in terms of where the premier levels of open-wheel racing appear to be going. Everybody wants to go for ground effect now. Ground effect was a dirty word not all that long ago. Now everybody wants to do it. And you get something that looks like this. You get something with very clean topside profiles and very big underside profiles in terms of tunnels and diffusers. That's what you've got here, and it works really well. What I don't understand about this car, though, is why does it understeer at high speed like that? I would think the tires would be better. Perhaps that's a setup thing. Perhaps that's just a driving technique thing that I'm doing wrong, but I don't understand that understeer. But aside from that, it's a joy. It's an absolute joy. It's far and away the fastest car in iRacing. At least I think it is. Again, I'm going to have to do some more all-weather testing, if you will, to put this up against the MP430 and the FW31. But it's a hell of a lot faster than the IR18, I'll tell you that much. And it's just a joy. It really, really is. I've driven it here, obviously. Road America, it was fantastic. Zolder, it was fantastic. Imola, it was fantastic. Even Detroit, believe it or not, Detroit was absolutely phenomenal in this car. And yeah, it's, again, it doesn't have power steering, and it's 10 seconds a lap faster than the IR-18. So you want to do Detroit in this thing, hold on, because you're going to have dead arms. But it's phenomenal. It's really a breath of fresh air. Everybody who's been saying bad things about this car, I really just got to wonder what it is that you actually want, because this is good, and it's better than you think. I was expecting it to just be a bit of a laugh, a bit of, persiflage, if you will. What could we do if we had no rules, that kind of thing? But no, that's not entirely what this is. It's based around very real concepts that have been tried before. I mean, we've had ground effect cars before. We've had V10 cars before. We have had these front wings before. Again, I said that they were very, very reminiscent of 07, 08 Formula 1. They're here. The nose cone is lifted straight off of a Formula 2 car. So you see where I'm getting. You've got all of the ingredients here that are coming directly from the real world, and they're being combined in a novel way, and it just makes my brain tick a little bit. What is this really? We said off the top that it's a design study. It is absolutely a design study, but is it something a little bit more than that? Is it more so a proposal? I don't know. Be that as it may, though, that's what we've got here from iRacing today, the iRacing-Dallara IR01. Fantastic car. If you don't want it, don't get it. If you do want it, go get it. $11.95 through the iRacing client, unless you own 40-plus pieces of content like I do, because I have, well, yes, we won't talk about that. But go get it if you want it. If you don't want it, don't get it, and don't complain about it if you don't want it, because you don't have to get it. Fine. Stay tuned for the Hot Laps, everybody. Ferrari About 601 saying thank you very much for watching, and of course, we will see you soon.